Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Buck? Here. Senator Daly? Here. Senator Hammond? Here. Senator Lang? Here. Senator Pazina? Present. Senator Scheibel? Here. Senator Stone? Here. Chair Spearman?
Let the record reflect that all of the committee members are here, and I will apologize for the lateness. It took me 20 minutes to scrape the snow off my truck. Yeah, and the stomach's still on there, so if you see a mountain moving through Carson City, that's just my truck. So don't worry about it. Okay. So I want to welcome our audience that's here in Carson City and those who are joining us, anyone who's joining us in Las Vegas, and those who are listening over the internet. Today we have 2 bill hearings on the agenda, but I need to go through some housekeeping items first. As you know, these meetings can be viewed through our streaming service on the legislature's YouTube channel, both of which can be accessed on the legislature's website. There are various ways that members of the public can engage with us and participate throughout the process. These include in person here in Carson City, the Grant Sawyer Building in Las Vegas, telephonically. Instruction for telephone participation is available on today's meeting agenda and by submitting a written comment to the committee by email address listed on the agenda. You can also share your opinion via the legislature's opinion application on Nellis. Anyone wishing to testify in person should sign in at the table by the door and present a business card if you have one to the committee secretary. Any exhibits for the committee must be submitted in electronic format no later than 8:00 a.m. the day before the meeting. Submit exhibits to our committee manager, Terry Miller, or our committee analyst, Mr. Cesar Megarejo. Committee contact information may be found on the committee page in Nellis. And when testifying, please remember to turn on your microphone, please, and clearly state your name and the entity you represent at the beginning of your testimony. Speak clearly and project your voice to ensure those watching remotely can hear your testimony. And please remember to turn your microphone off when you finish speaking. And speaking clearly into the microphone is very important because sometimes people who are trying to listen over the internet, if they can't hear you and they can't understand, then that's a little unfair to them, okay? A reminder to all those who testify pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 218E.085, it is unlawful for a person to knowingly misrepresent facts when testifying before a legislative committee. A person who knowingly does so is guilty of a misdemeanor. In addition, both the chair and members may request any testifier to submit documentation supporting the testimony. All committee-related information is available on Nellis, which is accessible from the legislature's website. And finally, please turn off your phones. Anything that says, "Hi, Mommy, Daddy's here," anything that says, "Hello," anything, your Apples, your iPads, anything that's going to beep, then make sure that you turn it off. And as I said before, otherwise I'm going to come down and answer and say, "Hello." So turn off your phones, okay? Now, so with that, we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 193, Senate Bill 183. Senator Stone. This measure establishes provisions relating to the collection and destruction of unused drugs. Senator Stone? And I understand you have someone who's with us on Zoom? Okay, thank you. Begin when you're ready, sir.
Good morning, Honorable Chair Spearman, Vice Chair Lang, and committee members. I'm proud to present SB 183. The appropriate and the legal disposal of expired or unused prescription drugs is important to prevent drug diversion, protect our landfills, and protect our finite water supplies. First, I'd like to discuss diversion. Many citizens often store their unused or expired pharmaceuticals in their medicine cabinets, in their bathrooms, or in cupboards. This leaves their drugs vulnerable for children, grandchildren, or even strangers visiting them to take them, ingest them, or if a controlled substance, sell them on the streets. An example in the real estate profession is when they have an open house, many real estate agents often instruct the owners of the property to remove all of their prescription drugs that are in their homes to prevent them from being stolen by a would-be interested party looking at their home to purchase. In our rapidly aging population, which I am now a member of, there is a higher propensity of being prescribed controlled substances for pain control, not limited but including hydrocodone or Vicodin, oxycodone or OxyContin, hydromorphone or Dilaudid, or just plain morphine or controlled anti-anxiety agents like Xanax, or sedative hypnotics like Halcion or Triazolam. These drugs can be potentially legally sold on the streets for a lot of money. Data from federal law enforcement agencies has shown that OxyContin tabs can be sold for $50 to $80 a tablet, oxycodone $12 to $40 a tablet, hydrocodone or Vicodin $5 to $20 a tablet, and Xanax as much as $20 a tablet. Because of the inconvenience of finding a drug disposal box nearby, many people just throw their pills in the rubbish, polluting our landfills, or often flush their pharmaceuticals down the toilet, forever tainting our water supplies. You see, many drugs that are water-soluble cannot be filtered out by our water treatment plants. Hence, these drugs tend to accumulate in our water supplies over time, especially in southern Nevada, where there is a robust toilet-to-tap program that's so essential in confronting our drought and our dangerously low levels of Lake Mead. But we also see an increasing trace presence, which may present health issues in the future. As an example, studies have shown traces of drugs that are excreted by the body or those that are improperly disposed of that have found their way to Lake Mead, a major source of drinking water in southern Nevada. Some of these drugs that are found in our water supplies have been implicated in causing severe health care issues, including cancer. The solution is installing more disposal bins in retail pharmacies throughout Nevada. The DEA has promulgated the Code of Federal Regulations Title 21 that allows for the installation of drug disposal bins, and through this regulation ensures that bins are placed in pharmacies where they can be observed while the pharmacy is open and closed off and locked shut when the pharmacy is closed. It allows for licensed reversed distributors by the DEA to pick up the discarded pharmaceuticals and destroy them, mostly by incineration, in accordance with Title 21, which is fully traceable and accountable. Our national disposal company, one national disposal company, reported over 1 billion pounds, 1 billion pounds of pharmaceuticals were destroyed last year alone. The issue is that there's just not enough drug disposal bins in Nevada to appropriately discard pharmaceuticals. The Nevada State Board of Pharmacy has identified the number of existing drug disposal bins in pharmacies in Nevada from a shared database they have with the DEA. In Elko, there are 3 pharmacy locations. In Reno Sparks, there are 11 pharmacy locations. In Las Vegas Henderson, there are 28 pharmacy locations. That's a total of 42 pharmacies for 3.2 million people, or 1 bin for every 76,190 people. I will also mention that there are some drug disposal bins at certain police offices or sheriff's departments throughout the state, which are not counted here. For comparison, in California, that has a similar program, Sacramento, California, with a population of 520,000, has 96 pharmacy locations. That's 1 for every 5,426 people. So what will this bill do? It will encourage, not mandate, that pharmacies, especially chain stores within their market share, consider adding more drug disposal bins statewide, making the service better advertised and available, and expand to more convenient locations for our patrons to utilize. So you may ask, why would a pharmacy consider placing these bins in pharmacies throughout Nevada? Of course, providing this eco-friendly and public safety service can be advertised as a wonderful community partner, and one could also predict that these bins would increase traffic of customers to the stores to buy more drugs and sundries, etc., as they come in to discard their drugs. Pharmacies that install these bins cannot, by this legislation, charge a fee for patrons that use the bins to discard their used pharmaceuticals. It is a 100% free service offered by pharmacies participating. Pharmacies participating need to get regulatory approval from the United States Drug Enforcement Agency. The DEA remains the lead agency overseeing this program. The Nevada State Board of Pharmacy does not require and does not mandate or desire to mandate or permission via an application or permit for the same. In some states, like California, they do, which adds cost for the pharmacy that is participating. There is also no legal requirement for participating pharmacies to notify local law enforcement agencies in the municipality in which the bins are located. Not that it's necessary, as the DEA is the chief law enforcement agency in the program. Examining the bill more closely, Section 1, Chapter 639 of NRS is amended to add a new section, a collector that maintains a secure drug take-back bin for collection and destruction of home-generated waste shall comply with all state and federal laws relating to the same. B is going to be stricken by amendment. B2, status of registration as a collector with the DEA. C, ensures that the take-back bin is placed in a location that is regularly monitored by employees of the collector. D, ensure that a conspicuous signage is posted on the take-back bin that clearly notifies customers that the substances are not acceptable in the bin, which are Schedule I drugs, and that the hours during which the deposits into the bins are permitted. E, ensures public access to the bins is limited to the hours in which employees of the collector are present and able to monitor the operation of the bin. F, regularly inspects the bin and surrounding areas for potential tampering or diversion, and if so, they have to report that to local law enforcement. Maintain a record of the inspections and maintain such records for 2 years. And if a collector discontinues the availability of the bin, they must notify the DEA of that, taking out that bin. A collector cannot receive compensation from a customer of the collector to maintain that bin. Any collector that maintains a secure drug take-back bin is not subject to any civil or criminal liability or disciplinary action by a professional licensing board for any injury or harm resulting from the collector maintaining the bin on his premises, unless the injury or harm results from the gross negligence or willful misconduct of the collector. There is no mandate for any pharmacy to install and maintain such a bin. The Board of Pharmacy may adopt regulations for take-back bins if prudent. They also define in Section 6, number 6, a collector. What is a collector? Authorized and registered with the DEA to receive controlled substances for the purposes of destruction. The pharmacy has to be in good standing with any licensing authority, and we are going to be amending out Health Authority 6B as it's not necessary to require a health agency be notified of the existence of a bin. 6 C, D, E, F, G, these are all just definitions for waste, local law enforcement, the word maintain, pharmaceutical, secure drug take-back bin. Section 2 becomes effective on passage and approval. Section 1 of this act becomes effective for approval for the sole purposes of adopting any regulation or performing any preparatory administration tasks that are necessary to carry out the provisions of this act. And by October 1st, 2023 for any other purposes. I want to let the committee know that we are still working with our stakeholders. Amendments are being considered, one of which you have in front of you. Will exempt from any restriction a county or city or governing authority that has established that the effect, the collection, transportation, or treatment, disposal of the waste pursuant to this section doesn't conflict with their waste hauling franchise agreements. We want to make sure that's very clear. The board is going to be amended throughout the document to read State Board of Pharmacy and add on line 24, page 3 after controlled substances while under the control of the collector, and deleting reference to seeking or reporting to the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy, which is not required. And Department of Health or Public Health Safety Agency licensing or notification of the existence of drug disposal bins, which again is redundant and isn't needed. In summary, Nevada has a shortage of drug disposal bins. This is a voluntary program and is not a mandate. The service is free to any citizen to responsibly discard their pharmaceuticals and safely. And this will reduce illicit drug diversion. This will also stop depositing these potentially toxic drugs into our landfills and water supplies. I'm honored to have with me here today Dr. Nguyen, who is an assistant professor of pharmacy practice at Roseman University Health Sciences in Henderson. So I hope she's on Zoom. Dr. Nguyen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Senator, for inviting me. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Thank
We
you
can
so
hear you.
much. Thank you so much, Senator Stone, for your introduction of this important bill 183. And also thank you, members of the committee, for having me here. I think Senator Stone did a great job highlighting some of the aspects of why we want to support this bill, but I wanted to supplement with some information that I have on my own. And so as my role as a pharmacist, oftentimes I'm sitting down with patients to review their medications. They'll bring in their whole bag of medications and I go through each one, making sure that patients understand why they're taking their medications and what they're used for. And in doing so, I think one of the alarming things that happens is when patients are prescribed new medications that are supposed to take over their existing medications and patients don't get rid of those, right? And so what happens is during these visits, patients will bring in their bag of medications. And as I go through them, I recognize that there's duplications here. People are taking more, double than what they're supposed to be taking, or they're taking duplicate blood pressure medications, for example, that can lead to side effects. And I ask patients, why is it that you are what's happening here? What's the disconnect, right? And a lot of times patients are saying, I don't really know how to dispose of medications I do have, right? In addition to that, we know that a lot of patients are using mail order pharmacies. So patients are getting their prescriptions not filled in the community, but through mail order companies. That helps to save costs, and then they're delivered to the patient's homes. However, sometimes patients will be getting excess medications from their mail order in which they're not taking them anymore, right? So here are some two other issues that I wanted to bring up to supplement Senator Stone's information. And so Senator Stone did also mention the types of medications that get into our water system, into our trash receptacles. And he mentioned a lot of the controlled substances that we see out there. And we know in Nevada, and we look at our state prescription monitoring drug program, and we see that in the state of Nevada, we have between 500 to 700 opioid prescriptions per 1,000 patients that live here, right? So we have a lot of prescriptions for opioids. In addition to that, we have stimulant medications potentially used in the treatment of ADHD, anxiety medication, muscle relaxants. So all these medications, like Senator Stone mentioned, if they're not utilized, can get out onto the street and then potentially being bought by other entities, right? So as a patient educator, one of the things I try to do is think through a patient's eyes. So if they were going to dispose of their medications, what would they do? And naturally, what do most people do when they have a question that they don't have answered? They go and Google it, right? So if I went on to Google and I Googled, how do I dispose of my medications, right? One of the first websites that's listed there in, because I'm from Las Vegas, the Clark County Water Reclamation website. And their website provides information on some of the police substations that are in town, which includes 16 of them, in which patients can bring in these medications of excess and deposit them at those police stations. In addition to that, there's information on basically, if you have a small amount of medication, how to dispose of it, obviously not flushing it down the water system, but getting rid of it in your trash. And as I think about patients, while there are substations here in Clark County, about 16 of them, they think about convenience of patients being able to get rid of their medications. I don't know if patients will necessarily go out of their way to a police station to dispose of them, right? So in addition to that, we have national programs across the country. In the state of Nevada, we participate in 2 national programs, usually in October. The next one here is in April. Where there are sites around the city that take in medications and dispose of them properly. From data in October 2021, that's the last set of data that's available online, through that prescription roundup day that was in October, through 25 sites in Nevada, over 3,000 or 3,000 pounds or 1.5 tons of medications were collected during that one visit, right? So just increasing the opportunity, if these bins were located in pharmacies, we know that 89% of people in general live within 5 miles of pharmacy. So by having these bins available in the pharmacy increases patients' access to basically dispose of medications properly, right? They can go to their local pharmacy or one within a travel distance, and they don't have to go out of their way in order to dispose of medications that they are no longer using. So I support this bill, Senate Bill 183, because I believe it's a patient safety, a community safety project, and I think that it will just do our patients really well in Nevada. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Doctor, can you spell your name and title, please, so we can get it right for the record?
Sure, my name is Susan, Susan, last name Nguyen. And my title is Associate Professor of Pharmacy Practice at Roseman University of Southern Nevada, as well as a pharmacist at Volunteers in Medicine of Southern Nevada.
Thank you. Senator Stone, you have anyone else presenting with you?
That's it today.
That's it today?
Welcome any questions you might have.
Okay. Committee members, any questions? Yeah, Senator Scheibel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that this bill would not allow people to dispose of illicit substances in these bins, correct?
That is correct. Schedule 1s are not allowed.
Okay. And then I also wanted to ask, would a doctor's office be able to have one of these collection sites or bins?
Yes, they would have to file with the FDA for the DEA for the appropriate licensure and have a bin and comply with the same rules and regulations that a pharmacy would as far as monitoring it.
And is that common? Do you know?
I don't believe that's common.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious. Thank
Yes.
you.
Senator Daly, and then Senator Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Looked it over, looked at a couple of the amendments. I don't think anything there. I was just curious. I know people have to register with the Federal Drug DEA. How much of what they require is duplicated by this or vice versa, or is most of this covered by what you got to do to register with the DEA, or is a lot of this new? And then just curious if it's going to, create any unnecessary barriers to people implementing this. So.
Thank you, through the chair.
Let's go direct.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the question. The primary agency is the DEA, and the state regulations pretty much mimic what the DEA requires. The reason why I took out the reference to notifying the State Board of Pharmacy or the Health Department or Public Safety is to reduce those onerous requirements on the pharmacy that's doing this as a public service function without having to pay fees and approve their notification, when really the DEA is the primary public safety agency overseeing the program. Thank you for the question.
Now, Senator Buck.
Thank you, Chair Spearman. I was just wondering who are the collectors, like what background checks or restrictions are required of the collectors? So there is a chain of custody to destruction as opposed to going back into
Thank you for the question. So the collectors are, in fact, the pharmacies that we're talking about. So they're already duly licensed by not only the State Boards of Pharmacy, Nevada State Board of Pharmacy, but also the DEA. And then you have the companies that pick up the paraphernalia, if you will, or the used drugs. They are bonded. They are licensed also through the DEA. I'm also excited to tell you that a major nationwide company is actually building a new company here, an extension of their company in Story County that is going to be used for the collection of these drugs from pharmacies, and will incinerate them here in the state of Nevada, so we don't have to go outside the state of Nevada for the same. And that was the company I mentioned before that incinerated over 1 billion pounds of drugs in the last 12 months.
Thank you.
Appreciate the question.
Additional questions? Senator Hammond, and then Senator Pezzina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two questions. Good morning, Senator Stone.
Right.
So the two questions I had were, one, I don't understand quite closely enough the DEA is who you register with, but then the DEA does not inform any of the local entities. It seems like there was a disruption there.
No, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that we don't have to report the existence of the bins to local law enforcement, to the State Board of Pharmacy, only to the DEA is the master licensing entity, and they're the chief law enforcement agency that's going to be overseeing the bins. So no, they would be reported to.
They do. So the DEA does, you register with them, but then somebody, like the local authorities need to know, doesn't somebody need to know that they exist?
The State Board of Pharmacy knows because they share a database with the DEA.
That's what I was missing. Thank
Yes.
you. I did not understand that.
No
Thank you.
problem.
The other part was, I think in your bill, you speak of regular inspections. And I know that you're leaving it up to the entity to come up with their own regulations, but out of curiosity, in your mind, what does regular mean?
Okay, so that is specifically written in the DEA regulations and the state regulations as a part of this bill. So they have to regularly monitor it throughout the day. They have to initial, I think it's every few hours, they have to make sure that it's there, it's not being tampered with, and they have to report if it's been tampered with local law enforcement within 24 hours. So there's constant monitoring, and it must be open when the pharmacy is open and then closed when the pharmacy is open, with no accessibility from the public when the pharmacy is closed.
Okay, that explains a lot, because I was wondering if the regular meant to somebody coming by and looking, but the regular is referring to those who are in the store, who are monitoring it, the workers there. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Pazina?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Stone, for the presentation. I was really curious when you mentioned contamination to the water supply, if there were treatments that could, and if you know this, I don't know if there are treatments that can be done to the water after it's been contaminated by these drugs, or if it's just taken out of the water supply entirely.
So there are newer technologies now, using ozone treatment, but it's very difficult to get rid of some of these water-soluble drugs that are not filterable with present-day technology with our water treatment plants. So this is especially true for drugs that are excreted by the body and end up in the toilet. They end up in our water supply, and certainly the ones that are expired drugs that are flushed in the toilet or put into our landfills that leach into our water supplies. Those drugs, those water-soluble drugs, they find traces of them for years. And as, of course, when Lake Mead comes down, those concentrations become more pronounced. So there was just recently a study done at Lake Mead that showed numerous pharmaceuticals that could be detected in that water, which is a concern. Because Lake Mead is such a large body of water, we still have good water quality here. But we're looking 20, 30 years down the road here with more population here, more drugs going into Lake Mead. It could become a problem in the future if technology doesn't figure out a way to get these drugs out of our water supplies.
Hi, Senator. My question is about the collection sites.
Yes.
Have you, in your research, talked to different pharmacy chains about being collection sites, and how does someone become, I mean, I get from the bill how someone becomes a collection site,
Yes.
but how do you recruit collection sites?
I think by the publicity of this bill, if it should become the law, will be readily communicated through the State Board of Pharmacy, and I'm sure that there will be some noticing of chain stores of the availability and requests that these bins be put in. And I think many pharmacies, when they see the need here, I think I've articulated the need that we really need a lot more bins in comparison to other states, that hopefully they will participate and make it convenient. Really, the convenience is the necessary factor here, and people appropriately disposing of their medications.
Thank you. I really like this bill, and I think it's something that's really needed in our communities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Scheibel?
Thank you. And I agree. I also like this bill. I signed on to it. And as I've been sitting here thinking a little bit longer now, I have to ask, when somebody inevitably drops a Schedule I drug into this container, I'm sure there's a process for it, and I'm hoping that you can just help us make a record of what that process is.
So when the people that pick up the drugs from the collectors, what they're not going to do is go through the contents. It's actually in a sealed bag, and they're just going to incinerate that bag. So there really is no way to know. They're not going to x-ray it to find out if there's a Schedule I drug in there. But this is one of the reasons why it's safer, if you will, for someone to go into a pharmacy and dump without any questions asked, than to take that Schedule I into a police station and say, I'd like to use your drug disposal, I'm getting rid of my methamphetamine that I have. So I'm sure that there are Schedule Is that are dropped off in it. You're not legally supposed to do that, but there is no way that anybody is going to be apprehended, if you will, for doing that and appropriately trying to get rid of something like that.
Thank you, and I'll just add a comment. I'm actually really pleased to hear that answer, because basically what I think you're telling me is that we're not guaranteeing you safe harbor if you drop off your Schedule I drugs in this bin. But if you do, they will be disposed of properly, and we don't run the risk of children, pets, other people getting access to them. So I think that is the perfect compromise.
And just to follow up, there's no interrogation of anybody that goes in. It's like going into one of these, like a mail receptacle. You pull the lid down, you dump what you have in there. Nobody's asking you what you put in there. It's just going to be safely incinerated no matter what you're putting in there.
I just have a couple. The first one is, you mentioned every city except North Las Vegas. What you got against us? Oh, but it's okay. We can talk about it offline, okay?
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I want to say it was maybe 2017, it wasn't mandatory, but there was a presentation that we had, little bags that you could put your medication in, add water to
Yes.
it, and it would safely dissolve it, and then you could dispose of it. Is that kind of what happens if they take it to pharmacy or?
They can if they want to do that, although once you put them in those bags, it disintegrates the drug so that you cannot abuse it. But then it still becomes a product of a landfill, which I don't think we want to do. So, but you can take that and you can dispose that in the bill, but basically it's the virgin tablets or capsules or creams or ointments or patches even, that fentanyl patches, of course, which are controlled, you can dump them right in the bin.
Okay, so when people is it just the medicine, or is it the medicine in the medicine bottle?
It's usually just the medicine they pour into, and I recommend they take the bottles with them because it has their personal information on there, which is,
And if they don't?
confidential. If they don't, they could put the bottle in there. Again,
But it's disposed
it'll
of.
be in a sealed bag when the incineration company gets it, and nobody will know.
Okay. I think Senator Pazina asked a question about water supply, so my question would be, is some of the water that is purified through ozone, is that part of what we look at for gray water?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question,
yeah.
but the ozoning is just a further way of getting rid of some of the contaminants that are in water that otherwise couldn't be filtered out.
Okay, yeah, it's just the water that goes down the drain and that sort of thing. Okay. All right. Other questions? All right, then we will move now into support. Those who are in support will have 2 minutes per, and if you can be as brief as possible, and if someone has already said what you'd like to say, ditto is allowed.
Go first? Ladies first. Oh, of course. Good morning, Chair Spearman and members of the committee. For the record, Liz McMiniman, Retail Association in Nevada. I appreciate the chance to be able to speak to SB 183, and I appreciate Senator Stone working with the association. We represent the chain drugs, the ones that y'all are discussing, that currently have these kiosks in them. But this is a subject that I'm very passionate about, because since 2009, I have been participating in a part of what we initially started out as the Roundup. We started taking back drugs here in Nevada before the DEA started their program. And I was part of that with Join Together Northern Nevada and law enforcement. We knew that there was an issue, and we needed to address it with controlled substance problems that we were having. So that was the way that we addressed it at that time. Since that time, there has been kiosk in Walgreens. As a matter of fact, Walgreens, one of our members, rolled out the first kiosk in Nevada. They pay a lot of money to do that. It is a lot of money to dispose of those drugs. And I appreciate Senator Stone working with us on this and listening to all of these things going forward. I hope that this bill gives the opportunities to some of these smaller independent pharmacists that they may think to put a kiosk in maybe in their facilities. However, I do understand what Senator Stone is talking about. And when he talked about California, California pays the pharmacies to do this. They are actually reimbursed. There is no expense to the pharmacies, to the chain drugs, to the independents. The state pays for it or some other entity, but not which keeps drug costs down, as we know we're very concerned about. But I do support Senator Stone on this, and we will be working with him on the amendments because we feel like this could be a really good bill. And we appreciate his working with us and coming to the table and letting us look at the changes that needs to be made. To the question about the Board of Pharmacy and the registering there, that is not done presently because it would add more expenses. It's a registration if you're asking the Board of Pharmacy to do it, but it's all on the DEA website as we know. And Retail Association has gone out of their way to make sure that people understand and know that these facilities are out there. We put it in our newsletter, we send it out to our members, to all of the members of the association, but we also do op-eds and other types of things that we can get this message out to people so that they know that these are out there. And when you go in your local pharmacy, you can ask your pharmacist in a Walgreens, some of the others, Walmart, where can I dispose of my drugs? You cannot bring it to the pharmacy. That is against the law. The pharmacist cannot take your drugs and will not take your drugs. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
Hello, Will Adler for the record, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing Stericycle. Stericycle is the world's leader in prescription drugs removal and disposal today, and they're proud to be declaring that they're moving to Nevada soon here, as they're the aforementioned company by Senator Stone who are opening their flagship store here in Story County, Northern Nevada. So I would just like to say that Stericycle is a proud member of the prescription drug disposal group, and they do have one of the few facilities in the nation that is DEA allowable to take in these products and dispose of them. Many of the questions asked by the committee were similar ones I've heard before about how do these drug take-back kiosks work, how does the collection actually happen, and what's inside the bin, and how's it processed. It is already a very regulated process because, as the senator alluded, it is from the DEA on down. And there's everything from a scannable barcode on the collection bin and on the inside liner to ensure you could track that, because whomever, empties these bins is emptying quite a lot of prescription drugs at once. We do want to know who's taking that, where it's going, and how it's getting disposed of correctly. So I would just like to also state that the real benefit in proper disposal is kind of threefold. As stated by the committee, it is firstly to keep our lands and our waters clean, yes, but also to keep the citizens of Nevada safe. I mean, this is a give and a take where you get benefits on both sides of it by the first question might have been, how do we remove, prescription drug waste in our water systems? Well, the easiest way to remove it is to never put it there in the first place. The easiest way to remove the total base load of RX chemicals in water systems is to dispose of them properly so they don't end up there in the first place. So that's why Stericycle's been very proud, leader in this prescription drug take-back group. But I would also like to applaud Senator Stone for bringing this bill forward. SB 183 is a great first step in the right direction for sort of raising awareness and bringing up all these, boxes to the right standard to make sure everyone knows what they are, that they're able to be used, and they're effective across Nevada. But I would also like to say that Nevada's been trying to do this the right way for a while. We do have a lot of good community partners who do drug takebacks, who participate in the DEA's, takebacks, but those are only one day every 6 months. And we hear constantly from those folks, if there's just a greater way to promote this and get into people's hands that they can take out their own drugs and remove them themselves, that they would like to promote that. So again, applauding Senator Stone for this bill, because Stericycle has seen in multiple states and multiple programs that there's three real factors, and it's the ease of access and availability of these products, the public's visibility to them or awareness of it, and the promotion of and the state support of these programs really does generate additional drugs taken back and drugs out of the system out in Nevada. So thank you very much for this. And another sub note is I do know the opioid settlement dollars can be taken in today by a county and used as a local grant for drug take-back programs. So it could be a way to promote this additionally, but there's no dedicated direct funding to date, but there is some other avenues and resources that could be available. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Paul Marakin with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is also in support of SB 183. We appreciate the intent of the bill's sponsor and working with industry to bring a bill forward that encourages collaboration with public safety needs in our community, especially on the health perspective. The Chamber is in support of the bill, as I mentioned, but specifically because of the components you see that were laid out by the bill's sponsor with safeguards, not just from the legal remedy component, but also with access to the bin hours and oversight by the pharmacists. Again, we're in support of this bill. We appreciate the collaboration and also that it's a partnership and not a mandate. Thank you very much.
Paul Young on behalf of Tom Clark Solutions, representing Pharmaceutical Care Management Association. I'll keep it really brief. We're in support of SB 183 and thanks Senator Stone for bringing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Carson City? If you're here in support, please come to the table. Anyone in Las Vegas? Support?
Good morning, Barry Cole, Barrycole. How many of us have gotten a prescription that we didn't complete? You took a few doses and you had side effects. What did you do with the bottle? Sadly, they usually go up on your medicine cabinet shelf, and years later, it's still up there, and I'm guilty of this too. In my role with the American Academy of Pain Management, the American Society of Pain Educators, and what became the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, I have discovered that patients think that the physician who wrote the prescription will take the medicine back. Once when I was at St. Mary's as the medical director, someone brought me a garbage bag filled with controlled substances. They were supposed to have been destroyed when the individual passed away. They escaped. They got delivered to me. Now I'm stuck with what are thousands of dollars of drugs on the street and nowhere to go. The DEA twice a year does do take back, but I couldn't have this stuff hanging around my office for 6 months. And this is the dilemma I think patients and their families face. What do you do with this stuff? Most of the take-back programs, I hate to tell you this, will not recover controlled substances. They're going to get everything. Antibiotics, they're going to get hypertensive meds, they're going to get everything. What we don't want to do is what the FDA says, put it down your commode. That's not good for the water supply. You've already heard here in Nevada, we don't eat fish out of the Walker River because of mercury contamination. Do you really want to eat fish out of some other river that has opioid contamination or benzodiazepine contamination? So we need to collaborate, and these take-back boxes are really quite helpful, and I think having them strategically located in a pharmacy where they're always monitored by people that are aware of the rules and the regulations will make this much safer. So please consider this bill.
Thank you. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, anyone on the phone in support?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 183, please press *9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 057, please continue.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Kristen Aldred, spelled Kristinaldred. I am Director of Government Affairs at Stericycle, and I want to thank the Chair and members of the committee for an opportunity to speak with you this morning. Just a little background on the company. Stericycle's mission is to provide compliance-based solutions for regulated waste that protect people, promote health and well-being, and safeguard the environment. We support healthcare providers with the management of infectious and pharmaceutical waste across the globe, and we are currently building a state-of-the-art medical waste treatment facility in McCarran, Nevada. Stericycle also offers services to support consumer drug take-back activities, which is why I joined the company. I hold a PhD in human behavior and design, have conducted research on people's drug disposal behavior, and have experience developing drug take-back policies. Drug take-back programs provide a way for consumers to easily remove unneeded pain medications and other leftover and expired pharmaceuticals from their homes to help prevent diversion and accidents and to protect water quality. The misuse of prescription medications remains a critical public health issue. Many addictions begin with the misuse of prescription medications, often obtained from friends and family members. Getting people to safely dispose of medications they no longer need is essential, but it's not enough to educate people about safe disposal. Even when people are aware of proper drug disposal methods and they have good intentions, they still need convenient options. Unfortunately, flushing and trashing remain the most common forms of disposal by consumers, and many people simply hold on to leftover and expired medications. And convenience is about more than distance. We are more likely to do something that fits with our normal routine and more likely to stop someplace if we're already familiar with its location, like a pharmacy. Convenience is also important for the pharmacy collectors. Within the context of well-established rules and guidelines for drug take-back programs, pharmacies that want to participate as collectors need support and minimal barriers to participation. I applaud you for working on this important issue and would be happy to be a resource. Thank you again.
Thank you. BPS, anyone else?
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Okay, those in opposition, please come forward. Here in Carson City and Las Vegas. BPS, anyone on the phone? I'm sorry, in opposition.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 183, again, if you would like to testify in opposition of 183, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Anyone here neutral, Carson City or in Las Vegas? BPS, anyone on the phone?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 183, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers that are neutral at this time.
Okay, Senator Stone, you want to come back up? And I was sitting here, and I think we spoke about it when you came to my office with this bill. A few years ago, we had, I think it was Strategies 360. It was a, what is it called, RALI, R-A-L-I, and it was an acronym, but I can't remember what it stands for. But they were giving away free bags that you could, take home and that sort of thing. I know that your bill specifically addresses pharmaceuticals, but if there is any way to at least encourage pharmacists, and I don't want to do anything else with an amendment, but since this is voluntary, maybe there's something that you could put forward with that. And although I would like for us to be able to do a lot of things that California does, we don't just have the budget. So, thank you. Closing remarks.
I appreciate your comments, Chair, and I thank you very much for hearing my presentation, and I appreciate your consideration of SB 183.
Thank you. We will now go to Senate Bill 145. And Senate Bill 145 deals with misclassification. Senator Lang. And begin when you're ready. Do you have anyone in Las Vegas? It's going to be okay.
Good morning, Chair Spearman, committee members. I'm Roberta Lang, representing Senate District 7 in Clark County. And thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 145, which continues the work of addressing employee misclassification in Nevada. I'm pleased to be joined by Fran Alvarez and Randy Saltero, representing organized labor. In its simplest form, employee misclassification is a practice of classifying workers as independent contractors rather than employees. This misclassification can occur intentionally or unintentionally, but either way, it can have serious legal and financial consequences for both workers and the employers. Misclassification can result in workers being denied important protections and benefits that are only available to employees, such as overtime pay, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, and certain job protections. This can lead to financial hardship, job insecurity for workers, as well as unfair competition for employers who are following the rules. Chair Spearman, with your permission, I'd like to provide a short review of the history behind employee misclassification. Thank you. The 75th session of the Nevada Legislature approved Senate Concurrent Resolution 26, creating the Legislative Commission Subcommittee to study employee misclassification. The subcommittee was directed to determine the scope of the problem of employee misclassification in Nevada, including 1, the implications and scope of economic losses for employees and lost revenues for the state and local governments. 2, proposals for state processes to identify employee misclassification. 3, potential penalties for employers engaging in employee misclassification, and 4, legal recourse for affected employees. As a result of its work, the subcommittee adopted several recommendations, including, among others, creating a task force to coordinate state efforts to reduce employee misclassification, providing a private right of action for misclassified workers, and implementing a graduated penalty against employers who misclassify their workers. Although it took some time, these recommendations from the subcommittee were enacted by the 80th session of the Nevada Legislature with the passage of Senate Bill 493, including the creation of a task force on employee misclassification. The measure before you today, Senate Bill 145, incorporates several of the recommendations from the task force, such as revising statutes that prohibit state agencies from sharing investigative information related to misclassification, sunsetting the task force on employee misclassification, increasing penalties and/or administrative fines for misclassification under the Office of the Labor Commissioner, Department of Business and Industry to $5,000 or more per violation, and allowing the Office of Labor Commissioner to retain the administrative penalties and investigative costs to fund additional positions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Randy Saltero, who's going to go through the sections of the bill.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Randy Saltero. Going to go over the sections of the bill, starting with Section 1. Section 1 requires all monies from the administrative penalties collected by the Labor Commissioner to be deposited in a separate account in the State General Fund, which may be used to pay for the additional staff of the Office of the Labor Commissioner. Section 2 requires the Office of the Labor Commissioner, the Division of Industrial Relations, the Employment Security Division, the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation, the Department of Taxation, and the Office of the Attorney General to share information relating to suspected or actual employee misclassification, regardless of whether the information is declared by law to be confidential. Such information that by law is declared to be confidential must be maintained under the terms and conditions required by law. You'll find that in Section 2. In addition, Section 2 includes the definition of employee misclassification. This inclusion is necessary because Section 5 eliminates the task force on employee misclassification and repeals statutes associated with the duties of the task force. With that, Chair, I would like to turn over to Fran Alvarez to continue with Section 3 of the bill.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Fran Alvarez, and I am here to talk about Section 3. Section 3 deletes provisions authorizing the Labor Commissioner to impose a tiered system of penalties for the misclassification of employees. Instead, Section 3 provides that an administrative penalty imposed by the Commissioner must be a fine of $5,000 for each employee who is misclassified by an employer. There is the proposed conceptual amendment for that section, which you should all have in your package. Thank you, and I will turn this back over to Senator Lang for her closing remarks.
And then we do have an amendment to the bill that you should have received, and I'll ask Randy Saltero to go over that, please.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Randy Saltero. So you see in Section 2 that the penalty part was actually, in the original bill, was stricken in its entirety. After working with stakeholders, this is what was the result of that, and we found everybody's in agreement with this. Section 2, Sub A, for the first offense committed by an employer who misclassifies or otherwise fails to properly classify a person of an employee of the employer, a warning issued to the employer by the Labor Commissioner. B would now become, for a second or subsequent offense, a fine of $5,000 for each employee who was willfully misclassified, imposed by the Labor Commissioner. The word willfully is important. not only to stakeholders, but to make sure that this bill does address only bad actors who intentionally try and break the law.
And with that, Madam Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Committee questions? Senator Daly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll go backwards on my questions from the bottom. And I did see the amendment, and it addressed one of my concerns, but you kept saying it was Section 2. It's actually Section 3 in the bill, but nevertheless, just it's fine. So the second question is in Section 2 regarding the confidentiality. And I know it says the intent is that if there's confidential information shared between the two offices, that the receiving party will maintain it as confidential unless a court order and all of that stuff. I'm not sure it's as clear as it could be. It says it has to be maintained under the terms and conditions required by law, but it doesn't say who. We might think about just making sure that it's clear that whoever receives the information will maintain it the same as the person who gave it. I think a clarification there. And then on the definition, just wanted to be clear, have on the record, and I support the misclassification, various things on that stuff. Just want to make sure that we're really just trying to get to the misclassification, because other people try to use some of these terms and various things to expand it into other areas that has not been the intent, especially when it comes to jurisdictional issues under construction provisions. So it is just meant to be limited to the misclassification portion of what we're looking at.
Fran Alvarez for the record. Yes, Senator Daly, that is the intent. Thank you.
Thank you. And one final question, if I can, Madam Chair. And I know I've spoken to everybody that's up there about this particular issue, and that's in Section 1, subsection 5. And I know it was a recommendation of the task force and various things, but I still have issue, and I did some checking. No other agency funds their agency through the collection of fees and fines and various things. Recovering the investigative costs, attorney fees, many other agencies, boards, and various, well, not agencies, but boards can. I did find the language that I mentioned to Senator Lang. It's in actually NRS 622 regarding the collection of or being able to retain investigative costs and attorney fees. But the penalty, I think, is problematic. Nobody's funded like that in any other way. Regulatory boards either give it to an industry fund like the Contractors Board does. And I just would hate to see any of the state agencies try to be funded through penalties. As you might understand, you just create problems where, well, it's near the end of the quarter or near the end of the fiscal year, so I got a bigger penalty than somebody else did because they have to continue to fund that position. I think it's just bad policy to fund it through penalties. And it's not done. I made a short conversation to LCB to find out if anybody else is funded that way. Didn't want to take up their time, so off the top of their head, they said no. And to my knowledge, there are no others funded that way. So I have that concern, and I'm hoping we can address the investigative costs and attorney's fees by putting over in probably the origin statute, which would be 607 for the Labor Commissioner, that it would allow them to do that, same as other boards. But the penalties are a problem and would cause me not to be able to support it if we can't fix it. So, thank you.
Response?
Fran Alvarez for the record. Thank you, Senator Daly. We will look into that. The task force decided to put the money into that separate account so that the Labor Commissioner would be able to fund going after these bad actors. But thank you for your thought, and we will look into that.
And I appreciate that. I saw a task force recommendation, so they didn't decide. That'll happen here. And again, I understand the idea, I understand it, but it creates other problems of having the perception that you're going out and prosecuting in order to fund your office. It's something that we should really take a hard look at, and there's other things to be done. Happy to go with you to finance and get more money for the labor commissioner. Be happy to suggest that. I don't know if it's in the cards, but 100% support that. So.
Thank you, Senator. For the record, I did speak with the Labor Commissioner about that, and she did not feel there would be that perception. However, we will go back and take a look at that. Thank you.
Just some questions. So one of the things that, excuse me, 2019, I think it was, we had the pay equity bill. And instead of the money going to NERC, it went to the general fund, and NERC then requested the money to support whatever their activities were. So that eliminated the perception. So just a thought. You know, Ms. Alvarez, you have here the cost to communities, and I've been reading it, but can you just, so there's a private employer, and they are, in Mr. Saltero's words, willfully misclassifying. How does that hurt communities?
Fran Alvarez for the record. Thank you, Senator Spearman, for the question. It hurts the communities because they do not get the tax revenue that is not being collected. It hurts the worker because they do not get, if they get hurt on the job, they have no compensation for, what's the word? For workman's comp, I'm sorry, I forgot. There's no workman's comp if you are an independent contractor. And by classifying a person as an independent contractor as opposed to an employee, you do not get that benefit. The employer does not pay into unemployment, workman's comp, tax, none of those. Therefore, the employer has an edge when someone is bidding a contract, say, because they do not figure those costs into their bid. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it is, and I just want to take a deeper dive. So, one of the things that has been brought up to me is that this is not an infraction, shall we say, that is cost neutral, because when people are misclassified and treated as, or classified as contractors, then the social services that is already strained usually has to pick up the tab for that. And so, you know, a few years ago, there were people who only had people working 39 hours, so they wouldn't have to pay health insurance and that sort of thing. So the cost to communities would actually be delineated in whatever the additional social services are required for that person. So it's a private employer that willfully, Mr. Saltero, willfully has misclassified, but then it's the community that picks up the bill for that. Is that my understanding?
Fran Alvarez for the record. Yes, Senator, that is a very high possibility, because when someone is hurt on the job and they have no recourse, then they do have to go to social services, you know, to help them, you know, get well. You know, the hospitals, the doctors, food, rent, all of those things would fall under that, because that misclassified person doesn't have any recourse as an employee would.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions, committee members? Senator Stone?
Thank you for the presentation. And the question I have is that in other areas of the country, they have what's called the ABC test to determine whether somebody's an independent contractor or an employee. So I know that in my previous tenure in California, we heard AB5, which was very critical of platforms such as Uber driver or Lyft driver. Some claim that they're employees, they claim that they're independent contractors. What is the test that we're using here, and where would those platform people fall? Because it's kind of a gray area.
My name is Fran Alvarez, for the record. Thank you, Senator Stone, for the question. If you look at section 2, number 2, as used in this section, unless the context otherwise requires, employee misclassification means the practice of an employer of improperly classifying employees as independent contractors to avoid any legal obligation under state law, employment, and tax laws, including without limitation the laws governing minimum wage, overtime, unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, temporary disability insurance, the payment of wages, and payroll taxes.
I appreciate what happens if somebody's misclassified. My question is, how are platform people that work like Uber and Lyft drivers, how are they presently viewed in Nevada as independent contractors or as employees? What's going to be the rule moving forward?
Can I just address that? I think because one of the things that happened in 2015 is that status is delineated in statute. So this would be separate and apart from unless we change the statute for the platforms.
Okay. And if you don't mind, Madam Chair, because I wasn't here at that time, what did that basically say, if you recall?
It classifies them as contract workers, and I'll get somebody to look it up, the exact bill number, but we passed that in May of 2015. So in that session, if you look under 2015.
Great.
Okay. It's in NRS 608.0155, so that's where you can find it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So and we could get legal to talk about this, but I think that those that you're concerned with, those are, delineated in statute. And so unless you change the statute, then the ABC test that you all did in California would probably not be applicable. Okay?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. You have additional people? Okay. So we'll now go to those in support of Senate Bill 145 here, and we'll start here in Las Vegas, and we'll go to, in Carson City, and then we'll go to Las Vegas. I don't see anyone coming to the table, but if you're in support of Senate Bill 145, please approach the table now. And those who are here in Carson City, as someone gets up, please feel free to take the seat. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Senators, members of the committee. Greg Esposito, representing the Nevada State Pipe Trades. We are in full support of this bill. Nevada works very hard to portray itself as a business-friendly state, and this bill actually helps improve that image. If a business is coming here, or is planning on coming here, and they know they're going to have to compete against other businesses that cheat and cheat their workers, they may be less inclined to come. And legitimate businesses who don't engage in bad practices are at a financial disadvantage because they are paying unemployment insurance, they are paying taxes, they are paying into the Medicaid system, where the businesses that don't follow the rules aren't contributing. Senator Spearman, you asked a question about how it affects the community. I employ workers, and I am asked often by those workers, hey, can you please make me an independent contractor? And I tell them no, even though it's marginal with what I do. But I want to pay into unemployment insurance for them because I'm going to lay them off at a very specific time, and I want them to have income after they get laid off. If I had classified it as independent contractors, they wouldn't have that. And as far as where the money goes for penalties collected, I would argue that every police department in this state, across the country, they write tickets. They write speeding tickets, and I got a ticket the other day for using my cell phone, and that money is going to go to police departments for their vehicles and their equipment and their training, all that such. It goes into the city fund as a whole, but basically using money collected in penalties for the process of continuing those investigations and continuing those enforcements is not uncommon. So I appreciate the time, and once again, we support this bill.
Thank you, Chairwoman Spearman, for the opportunity to speak this morning. For the record, my name is Susie Martinez, and I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada State AFL-CIO. And on behalf of 150,000 members and 120 unions, the Nevada State AFL-CIO wholeheartedly supports Senate Bill 145. It is critical that we hold malicious employers accountable for misclassifying employees so that every single Nevada worker can receive all of the rights and benefits that they deserve. This bill would make the Office of the Labor Commissioner more efficient by providing it the ability to hire more staff, as well as make communications between every office involved in employee misclassification more effective. Furthermore, it would impose greater penalties on employers right away from willfully misclassifying workers, which will guarantee that no employer get away with defrauding its employees. This legislation would strengthen workforce protections and overall create a better future for all Nevada workers. To that end, I urge the committee to overwhelmingly support Senate Bill 145. Thank you.
Hello, I am Sarah Collins with I3 Public Affairs, representing the National Electrical Contractors Association, the Sacramento chapter. We echo the statements from our previous supporters. Ditto.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and staff. My name is Rick McCann, Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers, and a member of the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition. In the interest of time, I will simply say ditto and true dat.
Anyone else here in support? Las Vegas? BPS, anyone on the phone?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 145, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Thank you. Connie McMullen, thank you, Madam Chair, and the bill sponsor. I represent the Personal Care Association of Nevada. PCAN is in support of Senate Bill 145, particularly Section 2 regarding employee misclassification. We support Senate Bill 145 as it applies to 1099 independent contractors and personal care agencies that use independent contractors to provide services leave caregivers in a precarious state as they are not trained and background checked, nor in compliance sometimes with what is required of caregivers in NRS Chapter 449 regulations. Additionally, independent contractors are not provided unemployment insurance, workers' comp, overtime, health insurance, and everything that was presented. PCAN supports holding bad actors accordingly, providing funding for the Labor Commissioner to enforce penalties and corrective action against agencies that deliberately disregard state labor and compliance regulations. And so on behalf of PCAN, I thank you, and I thank the bill sponsor for bringing SB 145 forward. And I forgot to say that we also support the amendment. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 237. I can see you are unmuted. Please continue.
Hello, members of the committee and Madam Chair. My name is Marlene Lawkard, representing SEIU 1107. we too are in support of this bill. And I would just like to add, many of you may remember that last session we created a board for home health care workers. And one of the recommendations to come out of that board is that the home care workers must be W-2 employees and not independent contractors. So we too have experienced this problem and appreciate the bill. Thank you.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Anyone here in Carson City in opposition or in Las Vegas, please come to the table.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Moratkin with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is opposed to the bill as drafted, but we're working with proponents, of course, and the bill's sponsor to address those concerns, specifically to Section 3, subsection 2A and B regarding the warning and the fine structure. We know that was not the intent of the recommendation of the task force, which the Chamber did have a representative. So we believe the conceptual amendment as proposed today will address those concerns, and with adoption of that amendment, the Chamber will move to neutral. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Las Vegas? BPS, anyone on the phone in opposition?
Chair, your line is open. Oh, I'm sorry, Chair, you just had someone join. If you recently just joined and you would like to testify in opposition of SB 145, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to testify in opposition of SB 145, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Anyone here neutral or in Las Vegas? Neutral?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good to see you. For the record, Trey Abney with the Abney Talcon Group, here today representing the over 2,000 members of NFIB in Nevada National Federation of Independent Business. We want to thank the sponsor for working with us. We had the same concerns about the willfully language. We want to make sure that, at least initially, government can reach out and assist instead of use a hammer, but certainly folks should be punished after they've been helped and assisted with. They should be punished if they are willfully breaking the law. And I just want to point out that I represent the small business, the non-big box folks. They don't have an HR department. They don't have a legal department, and most are at their counter or at their desk whenever their doors are open. So anything we can do to help them first through these issues, we appreciate. So again, appreciate the sponsor, and we have moved to neutral because of that amendment. Thank you very much.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Paul Enos. I am the CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, and we are neutral with the conceptual amendment. Trucking industry uses independent contractors in our day-to-day business, whether it's peak demand or a ship gets in earlier, you have a customer that decides to increase their production. So we do use a tremendous amount of independent contractors. And those independent contractors want to be independent contractors. They want to be independent contractors to be able to control their own schedule, maybe not have to go over dawn or pass, or be able to take 1 to 2 months off. We have a lot of first-generation immigrants who come here, they buy a truck, they operate as independent contractors because they still want to be able to take 1 or 2 months to go back home and visit their friends and family in the country they left. We do know that the law can be confusing with multiple standards, even in Nevada statute for different things, whether it's an 8-factor test for wage and hour or ABC tests, or even the IRS 20-point test. So we do know this can be confusing. We really do appreciate both the proponents and the sponsor working with us on keeping that warning in and keeping in that term willful. So thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you. Someone in Las Vegas? Neutral?
Good morning.
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner. I just wanted to be present. Obviously, we are monitoring this bill and just to see if the committee had any questions of our office.
No, ma'am, no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in Las Vegas neutral? Anyone here in Carson City? BPS, anyone on the phone?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 145, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 915, I can see you are unmuted. Please continue.
Okay. My name is Paul Bodine, for the record, and I thank the committee for this opportunity to, oh, you know what, I'm in the wrong. Okay. For this opportunity to testify, am I being heard right now?
We can hear you.
Hello? Okay. All right. I have sent an email in opposition originally, because that was my original position, to all the members of the committee. Hopefully you'll get a chance to read that. And I was going to read it, but people have brought up so many good things I want to comment on what I've heard so far today. My main point is in harmony with the gentleman from the Truckers Association, the fact that there's a lot of people out there who want to be independent contractors. So that's why my position now is neutral, because I'm not against the idea of holding the bad players accountable. I'm not sure that $5,000 is really, somebody who's got a viable business, I'm not sure that $5,000 is really going to by itself prohibit them. I think the main course is to take, have the employee who feels like they've been damaged take the employer to court. I think they're most and I own 2 employment agencies, referral agencies. So I use 1099 contractors exclusively. We screen them at the beginning when they're applying with us. We try to make sure that they're not looking for a job. They don't want to have the benefits that go with having a job. They want the benefits from being independent and running their own businesses. So my main concerns is that the state would take that in consideration. I appreciate the amendment that was put forward. I think that takes care of my main concerns with the language of the bill. I'm a little bit concerned with some of the supporting documents from PCAN and from the Teamsters. I think they're a little bit one-sided, not a little bit, I think they're a lot one-sided. But again, I understand their concern is to protect the employees. My concern is that people who don't want to be employees still have a course and feel free to operate that way within the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Chair, you have no more callers neutral at this time.
Thank you, Senator Lang. And while you're approaching, I just want to make a further comment about the bill that I spoke of with regard to the monies going into the general fund is NRS 233.220. And so you can probably lift the language from there. That would help it. But the other thing in terms of looking over the bill and being sympathetic to small businesses, when we all pay taxes and some people get away with not doing things and we have a limited amount of resources. Unlike many other states, we do not have a state income tax. And I could go out into a stadium with 50,000 people and probably wouldn't find 2 people to say, do that in Nevada. So that means that the way that our revenue stream. And in 2015, when then Governor Sandoval was looking at restructuring the revenue and looking at those, quote, people who were working their employees, scheduling them for 39 hours, and then, they'd get 1 or 2 hours in between, so they didn't have to pay medical benefits or all the other things. So part of what I see in terms of Ms. Almaraz, when she brought that up, part of that is if somebody gets away with doing something that they shouldn't be doing, then the onus, then the cost falls back on us. And so I would think that even small businesses who were concerned about this would want the big folks who could get away with it willfully and who have an HR department and who have attorneys on retainer. I would think that they would want to, look at this very judiciously, because that means that we're not subsidizing people who can do it and get away with it. So, Senator Lang, just my comments.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take this moment to thank the Commissioner for her help on this bill. A lot of work went into it, and she was always there and willing to be helpful for us. So I just want to thank her for that. And for the committee, I'm asking you to please support Senate Bill 145 as amended as we move it through the process. And in the interest of time, that's all.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 145, and we'll open it up now for public comment. Anyone here in Carson City for public comment, or in Las Vegas, or on the phone? And again, remember, public comment is not going over what we've already heard in any of the bills. It's something separate and apart from what we've heard today. So anyone here for public comment? Anyone on the phone? BPS?
To participate in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And so with that, this session of Nevada State Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, we are adjourned. Thank you.